Ladies and centers, welcome back to another edition of the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. We're back at it again as always every Tuesday evening Pacific Standard Time where we talk anything Vegas sports because this is IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can get at us on our Twitter forums at SinCity_IESR, at Cale_Henderson. Talk anything about Vegas sports. We got a lot to cover today. Mountain West Conference tournament is underway. Men's and women's team, we'll give you some updates there. Men's team starts tomorrow about midday against Air Force. The Lady Rebels are still kicking ass and taking names in the Mountain West Conference. Nothing's changed. They're 29-2. They currently have a lead. We'll keep you guys up with live updates there. The Golden Knights made a big trade. We could have Las Vegas could have a Major League Baseball team here very, very soon because some big things went down over the weekend, or at least over this past couple weeks, that would help that front. And then we got to talk about the Raiders. First, we're going to touch base on Derek Carr's new home because the reason why he's so relevant, guys, is he was the 9-year vet. He's been a mainstay. He has a new home. And honestly, he's an all-time leading passer for the Raiders. So it's relevant. You know, we're going to say goodbye tonight. But we're gonna list where he went to, why it's a good thing. On top of that, we got to talk about the Raiders' needs because obviously their biggest, most glaring need now is what? Quarterback. Can we agree on that? Quarterback is the biggest need for the Las Vegas Raiders at this point, and we're hoping that Josh McDaniels can pull his head out of his ass and get something done because it's kind of hard to believe with the talent he had last year, with the quarterback he had, the starting wide receiver. Yes, 2 mainstays were out. But it was just bad, man. It just looked like bad play calling from the very beginning, and everybody's saying it but Raiders insiders, honestly. I just think, guys, there's too many people that are afraid to say something and upset Josh McDaniels because of the Patriots' background, and, you know, sometimes they're just not willing to talk to media. But we're not going to do that here. We're always going to be real with you folks, man. I'm not here to be negative. I want Josh McDaniels to succeed. I want Dave Ziegler to get Executive of the Year. It's just kind of hard to see that happening. So we're gonna go to a quick break here, play some of my favorite teammates drops, and when we get back, we're gonna dive right into Sin City Sports.
Damn! PDG, set, hey!
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Callum Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head prime-time face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it.
What's happening, sports fans? Are you a fan of Southern California sports? Are you looking for a show hotter than a hot summer day in California? Then look no further than the SoCal Supreme Sports Show, where I talk about all things Southern California sports. That's right, all sports teams from Southern California. From the hard-hitting tackles of the NFL, to the killer crossovers and big three-pointers of the NBA and WNBA, to the grand slams of the MLB, to the bone-chilling goals of the NHL, and to the booming kicks of the MLS, the SoCal Supreme Sports Show has it all for you. Oh, and let us not forget about the college sports as well. So join me, Taryn Rodriguez, every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What IE Sports Radio fanning? What up, what up? Welcome back to the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, where we talk about all things Vegas sports. And before we get into that, guess what? We have to talk about our platform, that lovely platform, IE Sports Radio. Yeah, you guys heard it here first. For the last 8 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we continue to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you shout-outs on all 32 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment. Hosted by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Larry B. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. And we in it, folks. As always, we're always in it, man. We're always excited. We're happy. We're enthused to talk about our Vegas sports fan base. For example, you know, we got to talk about it. UNLV women's basketball is still killing it. They're up 71-68 against the Aztecs. It is actually, they just won. I apologize. It's a final. The UNLV Rebels are 30-2. They're the number 1 seed in the Mountain West Conference. They are absolutely killing it. I want to say that they've won. Give me 1 second. They are currently on a 21-game win streak. They started out 9-2, have won 21 straight since then, and they are currently leading the clubhouse when it comes to the Mountain West Conference. Men's basketball, on the other hand, slightly different story. They're the number 7 seed in the Mountain West Conference. They take on Air Force tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That'll be on the Mountain West Network. I mean, I see them winning this first game. I just don't think the Mountain West in men's basketball is very good. Let's be real. I don't think they're that good, but they'll be all right. Mountain West women's, by the way, you know, it's not terribly deep. It's not terribly deep. But I can tell you right now, I think these Mountain West, I think the Lady Rebels could really compete with some of the teams in the major tournament. And yeah, I think that's what we're looking forward to. I think that's what we're heading to. Is we're going to see them get a 2nd or 3rd seed, maybe even a 4th seed in the big bracket, and they'll have the ability to really test their lumbar when it comes to how they're going to play other teams. I just think they score a ton of points, man. Like the first game of this tournament was like 84-47. Okay, they just put up 71 points against a pretty decent Mountain West team. They had a couple 100-point games this season, which is absolutely incredible in college basketball. It's so hard to do, not easy at all. Not easy at all. And somehow these Lady Rebels were able to do it. So they're on the hunt. They're killing it. Yeah, man. I just don't know how else you want to describe it. Right now, they're playing their best basketball. They beat San Diego State. They're now awaiting. Let's take a look here. When we look at the bracket, you have to bear with me 1 second. When we look at the bracket, because we know they're the championship team, right now we're awaiting the winner, which it's supposed to be going on tonight. That specific game should be going right now. Colorado State and Wyoming, which is kind of crazy because actually UNLV played the 5 seed. Wyoming is the 2nd seed. Colorado State's the 3rd seed. So it was pretty top heavy this year, it looks like. But UNLV beat San Diego State. They're on to the championship game, the Mountain West championship game. They're awaiting their opponent, Wyoming or Colorado, and that game is underway as we speak. So we'll see what happens from. Actually, I apologize. That game starts in about 15 minutes. So we're going to see by the end of the night who our lovely Lady Rebels ends up playing between those two foes, those two Mountain West foes. The good news is we know that they've absolutely dominated these two teams this year. I have a lot of confidence that the Lady Rebels pull off this championship victory. Unlike the men's team, I think the Lady Rebels are absolutely dominant, and it wouldn't surprise me if they won a couple games in the big tournament. Golden Knights had a big trade this week, guys. If you guys didn't know, if you're living under a rock in Vegas, for some reason, and you just didn't keep up with this, Jonathan Quick was traded to... Actually, I can't wait to talk about this because we talked about it on the Chi-Town Sports yesterday. If you guys get a chance, go listen to Chi-Town weekly. That's hosted by Adam Karnick. He's a lovely host, man. He does a great job here on IE Sports Radio. He's got one of the best radio voices. Does an excellent job putting together shows. He invited me on to talk about draft analysis, players that I think Chicago would be great. The situation with Jalen Carter. We talked on all that. And at the very end of the segment, I asked, what did you think about the Jonathan Quick trade? Jonathan Quick is probably going to be a Hall of Fame goalie. He's 37 years old. He's definitely leaving his prime. But this Golden Knights team is very good. They're loaded. And they really just need a veteran type player to step into that goal while guys get healthy, because we have multiple goalies on IR right now. Jonathan Quick steps in, provides an immediate void, or fills an immediate void, and it might take a little bit for him to mesh and gel with our team. Unfortunately, they lost 2-1 tonight by the Florida Panthers. Florida Panthers are no joke. They're actually a really good team. But as of right now, the Golden Knights still lead the Pacific Division. Here's the thing. You just got to be in the top 3 of the division to advance to the playoffs and do what you need to do. It's always good to be number 1, because then you have a home playoff advantage. But you can't always rest your laurels on that. So we definitely need to see some points. Right now, they're still positive 25 points in the point differential. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10 games, and right now they're on a 1-game losing streak. It is what it is, right? Stuff happens. It's not a huge deal, but we really need Jonathan Quick to get in the fold and get into the fold quick, and feel, no pun intended, and feel very comfortable with this defensive unit that's in front of him, because that's going to lead to better scoring results, right? Less goals scored by the opponent, likely more transition hockey for the offense, and that makes a huge difference for the Golden Knights, because that's what they play a lot of. I do still believe Mark Stone. Losing Mark Stone is a big deal. For whatever reason, it's not talked about enough. I think Mark Stone was one of the better players on this team. He was a veteran. He was someone that was a locker room leader, and he was producing, man. He was like third on the team in points scored. Jack Eichel's still killing it. Don't get me wrong. Jack Eichel's doing an excellent job, but he can't do it alone. We need to see Patriotti and all those other guys step up. William Karlsson, we need to see what he was like, the inaugural Golden Knights year, because he lit up the scoreboard, put a ton of points up throughout the NHL season. We need to see more of that from the entire team, because they're going to have to be able to help Jonathan Quick. Jonathan Quick can't be expected to do everything. That's serious. That's real. That's real life. That's real stuff. We cannot expect Jonathan Quick at 37 years old to carry the team. But we know that it's not a rush. Like, they don't have to play him every game. You currently have cushion. You may be tied for first in the Pacific Division, but what you really need Jonathan Quick for is May, June, because that's when he's played his best hockey in his career. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's he's a Stanley Cup champion king. Hopefully he's a Stanley Cup champion Golden Knight this year. And hopefully we see our starting goalies get back. No promises, obviously. No promises. But we would definitely like to see that. It would make a huge difference for the Golden Knights, having a reliable goalie in there. Again, Jonathan Quick a couple days ago wins his Vegas debut. He likely didn't play tonight because they don't want to just throw a bunch on him. I think they're making the right calls. I think the Golden Knights are making the right calls. They're getting him acclimated. He's going to be ready for May and June for a playoff run, because that's what it matters most, especially in the West Division. That currently, the Golden Knights may be atop of the Pacific Division. They're tied with the Kings. The Kraken are hot on the heels, right? They're 2 games behind there. Kraken and Oilers are both 2 games behind. Let's see here, because right now, technically the Kraken and the Oilers are tied for 3rd place with 78 points. I would probably say that the Oilers have the advantage in the tie because of the point differential. I think that they go by that, or maybe it's home wins. I'll have to ask Adam Karnick that, guys. Sorry about that, but I see 2 teams with a 3rd place finish right now. If it were to end today, the Golden Knights would be atop the Pacific Division and for sure have home ice. And that's what you want. You want those rabid T-Mobile Arena Vegas fans cheering on your Golden Knights, buzzard, all the celebrities coming out, making a ton of noise. That gives them an advantage, because what we've seen from the Golden Knights is, 4 out of their 5 years, this will be their 5th year, I should say. 3 out of the first 4 years, they made the playoffs. 2 out of the 3 2 out of the 3 years they made the playoffs, they made it to the Stanley Cup final. And it's because they were top of their division each of those years. I think that Vegas home ice advantage does make a difference for our Vegas Golden Knights. I think Vegas fans are rabid. I think they love sports. And I think this is the first team that they ever had. And I think it means something to the town of Vegas. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's the first professional team that Vegas ever had. So I just feel like they're a bit more passionate with this team right now than others. Are they huge Raiders fans? Yes. I think the Raiders fan base, the Raider Nation in general, is just massive. I think Allegiant Stadium is a big tourist attraction at this point, and it's largely the Raiders' fault. We'll talk about that. It's Mark Davis's fault, really, because he can't seem to make the right decisions and put winning teams together with some of the people he hires. If Vegas is going to be relevant, if it's going to be home field advantage in Vegas, the Raiders are going to have to be winning. That's the reality. It's not like the O Coliseum where win or lose, it was going to be the black hole. No. This is business. They wanted that $4+ billion valuation. They got to win. The Vegas Golden Knights have done nothing but win since their inaugural season. They're an absolute blueprint for expansion teams. And honestly, the Seattle Kraken right now are in third place. And I think a lot of it has to do with that blueprint that the Golden Knights laid out. I think the Kraken have done a great job of emulating that. They're in their second year, and they're kicking ass and taking names as well. I mean, the fact that they're in third place in their second year and they're competing for a playoff spot is huge. Tells you they're developing well, they're using their draft picks well, and they used those expansion draft picks very well because, as you know, in the NHL, you can basically pick the 6th best player off of every team. And if that team somehow talks you out of taking that 6th best player, they can do so with draft picks and maybe a lower guy on the roster, or maybe someone in their farm team that the Kraken really liked. They just did a really good job of taking advantage of that situation like Vegas did in their inaugural season 5 years ago, where they took the 6th best player on each roster or amassed draft picks. What did they do with those amassed draft picks? They turned around and traded them and used them as ammo to bring on better players for this Golden Knights team to be a competitive team day one. And it's been that way for 4 out of the 5 years. Again, last year, if it wasn't for injuries, this Golden Knights team is likely in the playoffs. This Golden Knights team likely wins the Pacific Division. Their entire team, or I should say half of their team, missed half of their games last year. So they got half production. They still finished 4th place. That's how good this Golden Knights team is. That's how good I believe the coaching was last year. And it's starting to carry over into this year. We just need the team to stay healthy. We need the team to stay healthy. It's absolutely crucial. We're going to go play some drops because I got some teammates I really want to shine some light on, especially our next drop from Chi-Town Weekly, Adam Karnick. I'm telling you guys, go listen to his show. It's one of the best ones out there. When we get back, we're going to talk Major League Baseball expansion, the possibility of an expansion, because a couple steps took place over this last week that may have advanced the situation even better. We'll talk more about that when we get back here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Karnick, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
everybody, this is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy, awesome white tea. We're coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back, ladies and sinners. Welcome back to the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, where we talk all things Vegas sports here on IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can get at us on our Twitter forums at SinCity_IESR, and get at me on my personal at Cale_Henderson, where we talk all things Raiders. Where we're right most of the time, by the way. I know a lot of people don't want to believe that, but I can't wait for this show in our Twitter sphere to start catching more traction, because we seem to just be on all cylinders when it comes to our football team, the NFL in general as a business. I think one of the reasons why we are consistently, I would say 80% of the time, spot on with what's about to happen in the league. I think the reason why is, one, we have great study habits here at IE Vegas. The other thing is, we treat the NFL like it's a business, because it is. It's an absolute business. I'm not here to get in with the players' feelings and all that stuff. I'm just realistic, man. I'm here to speak about facts. Okay? For example, with Derek Carr, we're going to touch base on him in here in a little bit. With Derek Carr, the guy didn't really have much around him. Okay? Yes, he did have Hunter Renfrow, Devontae Adams, and Darren Waller for like 3 games this year. Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller out for 9 games. They had one of the worst offensive lines. Believe it or not, Sam Munson's an absolute idiot, so don't listen to him. There's no way they were a top 5 offensive line. Top 10, I should say that. They were one of the worst pass-protecting offensive lines in the league by far. Their stats from Sam Munson are absolutely inflated because of Josh Jacobs' success this year. And what nobody talks about is the dude's average contact was like half a yard upfield, and the dude had 1,100 yards after contact. 1,100 yards. So if his early contact was 0.5 yards, it means he was dragging dudes or making them miss for most of the year. And there's really no excuse, man. They've been horrible defenses. That's facts. There's no excuses here. It's being real. The Raiders have been inept, and we're gonna go on a crash course of what they need to do to get out of that coming up. Before we get into that, we got to talk about Major League Baseball expansion to Las Vegas. We seem to be at a point where some things could get really real here, because Rob Manfred has done one of two things. He's provided a deadline because he would like to know promptly if there's going to be a team in 2024 in Las Vegas. So he's got a 2024 deadline. He says this year's a crucial year. Legitimately, the Las Vegas area was denied $182 million in federal funding that would have been directed toward a new stadium project. It is well known that the Oakland A's owner, you guys heard it here, and I got this straight from The Athletic if you guys want to take a look at it. This corroborates everything that I've seen as far as, it was posted January 18th by Andy McCullough. Pardon me, every time I go mute, I apologize, guys. I'm fighting the end of a cold. I'm coughing a little bit. Bear with me here. I apologize. So if you hear brief breaks, it's because I don't want you guys to have to hear that crap, because it's nasty. But here's the thing. John Fisher is the owner of the Oakland A's. John Fisher has been looking to have a new stadium solution, especially since the Raiders left Oakland. But they've been looking for a new stadium solution for almost a decade in Oakland. And that absolute joke of a mayor, Libby Schaaf, in Oakland, who didn't want to keep the Raiders, which was a huge piece of revenue for that city, is not willing to really pony up the dough to help get Oakland a new ballpark, which makes no sense. So the team has also been locked in perpetual negotiations with the city of Oakland over a proposed $12 billion ballpark and development project at Howard Terminal in Jack London Square neighborhood. In other words, it's not just the ballpark. The ballpark would probably cost $1.2 billion. It's probably one that could close and open so that they can host games late in the year if they ever get relevant like that. On top of that, there's probably going to be a mall, hotels. I mean, legitimate business districts and housing districts, almost to make this entire area like a tourist area when people come to see Oakland A's games, or just in general travel throughout the year in Oakland, because it's usually nice all year round being in that San Francisco Bay Area. And nobody has been willing to cooperate with that. And the big thing is, and what nobody wants to talk about, is the owner of the Oakland A's, John Fisher, is willing to front $1 billion of his own money to build a stadium, to build a ballpark. The other $11 billion obviously would have to come from the city and federal funding and donors. I get that. But that's not a huge deal when you think about all of the things you could be doing to better Oakland. Because if we're being honest, Oakland in a lot of ways is a shit show. It is what it is, man. It looks low income based. There's a lot of really legendary things that go on there, especially from the sports perspective. But almost every one of their teams is looking to leave at this point. The Raiders have left. The Warriors left because they used to be in Oakland, right across the street from the Coliseum, right across the bridge, I should say, from the Coliseum. They're no longer there at Oracle Arena. It's now across the street in San Francisco. They lost them. They lost the Golden State Warriors. They've lost the Oakland Raiders, which brought a ton of revenue to that city year in, year out, whether they were winning or not. And now they're about to lose their baseball team. That mayor is an absolute joke. There's no way she gets voted back in. In her mind, it's like, well, I don't want to cost my taxpayers more money than they're already cost. I get that. Okay, fine. I can see that point of view. That's great for voting. But this is a big business thing. This is something that the Raiders and the A's were trying to team up to come up with the type of money. And the NFL was willing to pitch in, as well as Major League Baseball, to see both teams stay there. They were going to tear down stadiums and put brand new ones up. So that way people weren't walking in filth, piss, shit when they have to go to the bathroom or the games are full. Because that was the reality. There was legit floaters in Oakland Coliseum during Raiders games. And the plumbing wasn't much different over at the Oakland A's area. Maybe it was better because they average less than 10,000 fans per game. But regardless, that's the point. They share a stadium. It's nasty, it's filthy, it's run down. And all the Raiders and A's were trying to do is get something new. And the city just hasn't been cooperative. So Rob Manfred, the Major League Baseball commissioner, has basically said he has a 2024 deadline. But one thing that Rob Manfred has done, which I think is absolutely incredible, he's noted that this year's a crucial year. He's telling the Athletics that they need to have a kind of a decision made for the winter meetings. And he informed Las Vegas that he would waive any relocation fees, which would cost hundreds of millions of dollars if the team were to move to Las Vegas. You have an owner willing to invest $1 billion into a new ballpark. It'll never be as cool as Allegiant, no possible way. But if they could get something, pardon me, if they could get something close to the Arizona Diamondbacks ballpark, I'm telling you guys, which is gorgeous, they can remove the roof at any time and be outside, especially in that desert heat. It's going to be a legit place for people to come play. And then the overall worth of the team is going to jump from $700 million to billions of dollars in overnight because of the ability to sell tickets. And honestly, the A's are used to having less than 10,000 fans. If they can fill an entire ballpark of 40,000 fans, whether they're visitors or not, it just means money for Major League Baseball. It means a ton of money for the Oakland A's, and it also means you're going to get better because the baseball is slightly different. They don't have a cap necessarily. They don't have a cap. The richer teams can spend more on players. Oakland A's can now be more competitive. Instead of being one of the worst teams roster-wise and payroll-wise in Major League Baseball, they can be more competitive. Maybe this move moves them to the middle of the pack. They were doing damage with payroll that was always in the last quarter of Major League Baseball. Imagine what they could do if they had payroll that puts them up in the upper echelon. I'm just saying, it's something to think about. So those are big things. I think Rob Manfred really wants something to happen for the A's. He wants them to be something relevant long term, and a move to Sin City would do that because we've seen it with all the other teams. Look at the Raiders. The Raiders were worth $970 million before moving to Las Vegas. Now they're worth $4.97 billion in just 3 years. And that's including a COVID year too, by the way. That move to Vegas meant the world to that Raiders franchise. And they're not cash poor like you think. They're really not. Not like people have been saying. Mark Davis has money. He had enough disposable income to just go buy a WNBA team. I'm sure it wasn't that expensive. Relatively inexpensive compared to other forums. But yeah, I mean, he had the money to do it. He had the cash to do it. And they've won an NBA title, WNBA title. At least he can put a winning program together there, right? Which leads me to my next thing. This is a crucial year for the Las Vegas Raiders. Because this is one of those years where they have to have a long-term plan in place. They needed to draft a quarterback or sign a quarterback long-term. Hot button topic. Lamar Jackson was placed on the non-exclusive transition tag. What does this mean? Lamar Jackson can shop deals with other teams. What the Ravens have the ability to do is try to match the offer. If they can't match the offer to keep Lamar Jackson, the team that is agreed in principle and has the money that Lamar Jackson wants would have to give up 2 first-round picks to get him and pay Lamar his extension. I believe the Ravens could have gotten more, but this is a safe bet. At least you know you're going to walk away with 2 future first-round picks. And if this happens soon, You have a team at this point that would have multiple first-round picks this year and the ability to trade up and go get their boy. Like, what if they think this offense was built around Lamar Jackson and Anthony Richardson's very similar, just bigger, probably more durable, more muscular. It's already built around a running quarterback. What if they think they could take those 2 first-round picks from that team that Lamar's traded to and go get their guy this year? They start all over. They're on a rookie contract, and they can build around him. Because the Ravens have done an excellent job of doing that for years. Food for thought. And with that being relation to the Raiders, because that non-exclusive transition tag is involved, the Raiders are actually in play for Lamar Jackson now, if they want to be. Because 2 first-round picks, this year's number 7, which would be a big one for the Ravens, by the way, and next year's 2024 first-round pick, that would absolutely be worth it for the Raiders. They get their franchise guy. They build around Lamar Jackson, which they'd have to do a lot of building because there's a ton of holes, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And he would be a superstar in a Raiders uniform. Like, Raiders fans would fall in love with him immediately. I've seen dudes and analysts and reporters of the team, they said they would just love to see an African-American quarterback at the helm. It would look great in a Raiders uniform because the Raiders have always been a very progressive team. They've always been a team that is always looking further than that. And Mark Davis loves superstars as well. I don't think Lamar Jackson would be a fit in this offense. And as you can see from what we saw last year with Derek Carr, unless he was blatantly sabotaging Derek Carr, Josh McDaniels doesn't adjust very well to the quarterback talent he has. If he did, we would have seen a lot of short, deliberate throws last year instead of very long, progressive throws. Just saying. Can we trust Josh McDaniels to build around Lamar? He'd have to. Lamar's going to get $50 million a year. He's a former MVP. He has some injury issues. Knowing the Raiders, they'd probably front load that contract. Maybe be a 5-year contract. Basically give him 3 guaranteed. I'm just saying. They have 12 draft picks this year. I mean, they're kind of in position where they could kind of offload some things. They have a few players that they know that they can rework their deals because they have almost no cap space or no money going into next year's cap. The Raiders have over like $120 million in cap space next year. Max Crosby's deal, Chandler Jones, if they wanted to, they could rework that and basically create a voidable year. Colton Miller, all big contracts. Hunter Renfrow, if they wanted to, all big contracts. They could advance them money, cash up front, lower their cap space, and it would allow for big moves to happen. I'm sure Devontae Adams would do the same thing. Devontae's trying to win. And he's going to want a guy like Lamar that can help open up the offense. So it's not off the table. That's positive news for the Raiders fan base. Do I think it happens? No. I think there's way too many damn holes in this roster for the Raiders to be able to afford a $33 million quarterback, Derek Carr, let alone a $50 million quarterback, Lamar Jackson. I think ultimately the Raiders end up drafting a player. And I have a mock draft on our personal and on the Sin City Sports forum profile page. Did one earlier today. I won't lie to you. I traded back to 11 because it was there. It was an A-plus trade with the Titans. They went up and got their guy. Cool. I get it. They went up and got their guy. We traded back. We got multiple picks, a second and a fifth round pick for trading back a few spots. So 11, second and fifth round pick, and I think it was like a third round pick next year. We were still able to get Will Levis. I had some Joe Blow in the comments say, like he'll be there. We don't know that. Will Levis is the 4th best quarterback prospect in this draft, arguably. And he looks like a Raider already, man. He's got quick zip. He's deliberate. Strong arm. I think it just comes out effortlessly, to be honest with you. There's some guys that I think are just really pushing for C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson so badly that they don't recognize how seamless Will Levis throws the football. I mean, it's effortless, dude. And he's got zip on every throw. He's got a cannon, dude. Like, Mel Kiper knows what he's talking about. Not all the time, but he knows what he's talking about. And Will Levis can effortlessly throw the ball. He's got good size. He's about 6'3", 230 pounds. Largely durable. He had a down year last year. The offensive line was absolutely horrible at Kentucky. He got creamed. Year before, he looked great. Will Levis wouldn't be a terrible project. I wouldn't start him year one if you didn't have to. But it gives you something to look forward to. With the extra draft picks, I also drafted, what I think is an athletic freak. Abedawar, he's out of Northwestern. He's like 6'3", 280 pounds. The guy ran like a 4.65 40 and had like a 10.5-inch broad jump. So he's explosive. He's a rare, pardon me, I'm sorry. He's a rare athlete that we don't ever see in a Raiders uniform. He's smart because he's a Northwestern football player. I love it. I think it's a great draft pick. I think he'd be a great project. He doesn't have to start right away if you want him to be an end because you have Max Crosby and you have Chandler Jones. Doesn't mean he couldn't be a 3 technique, right? Just scoot into that defensive tackle right next to the strong side defensive end. Be a great spot for him. An absolute great spot for him for year one. I wouldn't rest my laurels on it. He's more of a project, and I know he's the number 40 pick in this situation. Sorry, the number 38 pick, but this Raiders draft is going to be about, finding a guy upside that you can plug and play as soon as you possibly can. We also have to think about development. I picked up Jack Campbell at number 41, the best linebacker in the nation this year. With Denzel Perryman likely not coming back, I mean, he'd be a perfect fill-in. He'd be a rookie. He just looks like a Patriot, so to me, he looks like a Raider now. Okay? Eli Ricks, Alabama product. They love Alabama products. This guy. Just saying, I mean, he looks like a corner that could easily play in the NFL. And the Raiders badly need corners. Let's talk about that. What are the Raiders' biggest needs right now? After Derek Carr's departure, after that abysmal year last year, led by Mark Davis, Dave Ziegler, and the embarrassing Josh McDaniels, who's 17-28 as head coach. What are the Raiders' biggest needs? I'll say it like this. As of right now, the quarterback is the number one need. It's huge. Without a quarterback, you're in trouble. That's the reality. Without a quarterback, there's nothing you could do. We've seen it. At this point, I have no faith in what they're trying to do from a schematic standpoint without Tom Brady. And I think we're finding that out. Will Levis would be in trouble right now with this roster. So they have to build. So what are the needs? Quarterback is the blatant number one. Blatant number one. The next one would be offensive tackle. While I like Thayer Mumford and I think Jermaine Illuminor did a really good job the last 15 games of the season, he didn't allow a sack for 15 games for that matter. It was always the interior pressure for that matter. They need true bookend tackles, man. Like, that's crucial. They need interior offensive line help because I think Andre James is a waste of space. I shouldn't say that. He's not very good. It's that simple. Him and Alex Barr struggled massively last year. So we need to do what most people thought was going to happen anyway. Move Dylan Parham inside to center. Draft 2 guards or sign a guard and draft a guard. Like, get your starters. Draft depth for that matter. The way I have it set up in my mock is there's all kinds of depth because there's like 14 picks. The Raiders can do that. They can build for the future by doing that. But I won't lie to you. My first, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 out of the 5 first picks are all defense because we need it so bad. Our defense is one of the worst in the league every single year. Round 5 is Trey Palmer, Zach Kuntz, probably a project at tight end, but he's like 6'6", 260 pounds out of Old Dominion. A guard, North Carolina State, because we really need someone who could come in and push the pile. Eric Gray, running back out of Oklahoma, experienced runner in a power run system. Ricky Stromberg, experienced center. If you don't feel comfortable moving Dylan Parham inside, you could always use Ricky Stromberg because he's from Arkansas. He's a Sam Witt product because they do a great job with the offensive line in Arkansas. Keep Dylan at left guard and let Ricky Stromberg step in. I also drafted Muhammad Ibrahim. Experienced runner in between the tackles, kind of a Patriots Josh McDaniels type fit, responsible for 20 rushing touchdowns last year for Minnesota. Everyone knew Minnesota was going to run the ball, and the guy still had 1,600 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, and 20 rushing touchdowns. There was no threat in throwing the football last year for Minnesota. Yet this guy rushed for 20 touchdowns. I have no idea how I got him in round 6. I think he goes higher because he is a stud. But I like having 2 extra running backs on this roster because I still don't know if Josh Jacobs is going to be on this roster. If you franchise him, I think someone would try to trade for him for a 3rd round pick. And I think Dave Ziegler and them would do it because you have Zamir White. You have Britton, the 7th round pick from last year. If you have a quality roster and great offensive line, these drafted backs look like geniuses. Look at Pacheco last year for the Chiefs. He had a top 5 rushing offensive line. What happened? He ran for 1,200 yards his rookie year and won a Super Bowl. It's possible, man. You don't have to pay running backs second contracts. It's that simple. It is that simple. But I mean, that's kind of the layout of the running back land anymore. I picked Jake Bobo out of UCLA for a wide receiver because we're going to need replacements. Matt Collins might be back. We don't know. Hunter Renfrow might get traded. And then TJ Bass. I picked another tackle prospect. It's just, there's so many needs for the Raiders. Quarterback being 1, offensive line, multiple offensive linemen being 2. Defensive backs, we are so hurting for defensive backs, it's not even funny. Interior defensive line, and linebackers. Like, we legit need somebody at almost every level. We legit need somebody at every level. And that's on Dave Ziegler. That's on Josh McDaniels. It's also on the previous regime for being so bad at drafting picks. It is what it is, man. That's just the reality of the situation the Raiders are in right now. So, with that said, that's the needs. I have my mock draft posted. I think it's an excellent mock draft. It got an A+ from PFF. Yeah, there's some like sketchy picks that are probably more upside guys, but I think it's a young class that would come in and really reshape what the Raiders look like. And they need it. Because right now they look like they're last in the division as far as the roster is concerned. With Derek Carr there, they're competing for second. Because he seems to have had the Chargers number the last 2 years when it matters most. I'm just saying, man. They gave up a lot. We'll see if they can recover. I understand a reset was needed. It was healthy for both sides. But that's the reality, dude. You got to find a replacement for Derek Carr that is better. It is unacceptable otherwise. Period. And build a roster around this quarterback. Build a defense. There hasn't been a good defense in a Raiders uniform for more than 10 years. Last decade, the Raiders were voted the worst defense in the league. Last 9 years, they've been ranked 32nd in the league overall. That's pathetic. No quarterback is winning. Not Lamar Jackson, Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers. None of those guys are winning a Super Bowl with the defenses that have been put on the field by the Raiders. And it's been embarrassing, to say the least. That simple. Turning our head, we're going to say happy trails to our former quarterback. We'll end the show on this guy. He deserves it. For weeks we've been talking about Derek Carr rumors and where he might end up. For weeks we've been saying NFC South. We think he ends up in the NFC South. I have been steadfast in saying Carolina. The New Orleans Saints are always third on my list, though. They happen to always be Derek Carr's number one team, apparently, if the reports are true. I thought Carolina was a great spot for him because, one, warm weather climate. Two, excellent defense, young defense. They're going to be able to create cap space. But maybe Frank Reich and them guys are tired of the veteran quarterback thing that they had to go through in Indianapolis, and they're like, let's just draft our guy. That's cool. I get it. Also, to something to keep an eye on. If Carolina doesn't sign somebody in the offseason, don't be surprised if Carolina tries to move up and draft. They have an additional second, third round pick, and I think a fourth round pick this year from the McCaffrey trade. They have ammo. Going from 9-3, because you know that the Bears are going to try and trade out. Going from 9-3 or 9-4, not out of the ordinary. I personally think the Colts trade up to 1. Bears go to 4, and then you have 3 teams that are probably going to be competing for the number 4 overall pick. Texans have their pick of the litter right now. And I think they'd be happy with Bryce Love or CJ Stroud. But someone's going to compete for that number 1 pick. And right now, I think it's the Colts. I think the Colts trade up to 1, get their guy of the future. Bears fall to 4, and then you have the Raiders and the Carolina Panthers essentially competing for that number 4 overall pick. And why not? The Bears don't even have to do that. The Bears don't even have to do that. The Bears could just sit there and be like, you know what, we got draft compensation, we'll just take Will Anderson. Or whoever the best available defensive player is. I think the Cardinals take Will Anderson after the Jalen Carter situation. But we'll see what happens. But there's going to be competition for that number 4 overall pick. That's so true to be said. Because I just don't see the Bears staying at 1. I think they trade out with the Colts ultimately. Texans get their quarterback, Colts get their quarterback that they want. And there's going to be 2 quarterbacks left that people are going to be competing for. I'm guessing it's Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. Will Levis is the 4th best quarterback in my opinion right now. So the number 4 overall pick could very well be Anthony Richardson. And it's going to be either Carolina Panthers, who I think would be great with them. Frank Reich would be amazing with him because he does an excellent job with quarterback development. Or it's going to be the Raiders. For some reason, Will Levis just looks like a Raider. I hate to say it, but it's the truth. But it is what it is, man. The Raiders got to go after it. Derek Carr is signed with the New Orleans Saints. So just kind of circling back, we've said for weeks that the Jets were intriguing because they had such a talented young team. But the NFC South is where Derek Carr, we thought he was going to land no matter what. There's just almost no competition there. No matter which team you went to, you're winning the division for at least the first 2 years. I think Derek is smart. He understands. He's probably got 3 or 4 really good years left in him if he takes care of his body and doesn't get hurt. 2 for sure. Especially with this roster. It's a very veteran-laden roster. Load it up, man. And the contract was so favorable. It's essentially a 2-year, $60 million contract. 2 years guaranteed. His base salary this year is $1.8 million. They're going to cut Jameis Andy Dalton's a free agent. They're likely going to rework deals for Cameron Jordan, those guys. And it would behoove them to do that so that way they can get some people on the roster and compete. Mickey Loomis and that ownership are not afraid to spend cash up front to bring in guys. I think this Derek Carr signing does a lot for the Saints. It allows them to pick the best available player, and it allows them to load up where they need to load up and go get guys they want to go get. Marcus Lattimore, I hope that they find something to do with Mike Thomas as far as his contract, because right now he's due $22 million. They made it a contract that's like a one-year contract essentially. With Derek Carr in the fold and his excitement on Twitter, maybe he helps the team out. He's got his money. He's had 3 years of his extension, and he's probably thinking, man, having a quarterback's better than not. Maybe he'll help the team out. Right? Marcus Lattimore, we already talked about him. Alvin Kamara, all 4 of those guys, Demario Davis, all 5 of those guys, they could redistribute their salary cap into bonus money and shorten the cap, like gain, like they can get into the positive. Right now they're like 30 million in negative, I think. They could get into the positive by like plus 30 million by reworking those contracts like they do every single year with voidable years at the end. It's about guaranteed money, man. That's all these players care about. And they should. And the reality is, if the Saints can continue to work it that way and they want to continue to rebuild, let them. Because I trust the Saints as a team that could take that $30 million in cap space and really add 2 or 3 difference makers on their roster that will want to come play for the Saints. They had the number 5 defense last year. I currently see a slight drop-off because they're going to lose a couple free agents, a couple players of free agency, but it doesn't mean they can't reload in the draft. It's highly possible because Mickey Loomis and them do a great job drafting. But using that $30 million to go out and get guys in free agency, I trust nobody better because they just don't miss on free agent signings anymore, man. This team's competitive every year, and they've just been riddled with injuries. So, yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. I think Derek Carr, it's a great situation for him. He's going to win right away. They're going to win the division next year. I think they win at least 11 games. Looking at the schedule, I think they win at least 11 games, putting them in great position, right? Putting them in great position to be competitive. If you win your division, you host a playoff game. Derek Carr is bad in the cold weather, right? Well, he doesn't have to worry about that week 1 of the playoffs if he's playing in a dome, Mercedes Superdome, in January. And good for him. He leveraged the situation. He's got 14 of his 18 games are in a dome next year. Great for him. And they got a lot of things they can do. A ton of things. So, with that said, guys, I'm going to close the show. Very sorry we went over a little bit. But you guys know how it is, man. We get tuned up. Congratulations to Derek Carr. Happy trails. Moving forward, I got to focus on the Raiders. He's no longer a Raider. We love him. We appreciate him. He did an excellent job for the Raiders with what he could. He's not absolved of fault. He definitely should have played better in certain situations. But at the same time, he wasn't really given him much. And I think anybody that knows anything knows that. It's so funny out there how Raiders fans and Raiders reporters are like, well, he wasn't that great. And then you got the perception around the NFL is, well, we want this guy to be our quarterback, especially the Saints. Derek Carr is a bad player, but hearing from other teams, oh no, he can ball. Aaron Jones said it on Good Morning Football today. He goes, is it just the Raiders fans? Is it just the Raiders mantra, or can Derek Carr play? Aaron Jones goes, Derek Carr can play. Straight up. NFL players just know, man. Keyshawn Johnson's known for years. It's just drama. That's all it is. Carr's a good player. I hope we get his replacement. I hope AR-15 ends up being on the roster. I'm so intrigued by that. I really am. A 6'4", 240-pound quarterback that runs a 4.40, like that opens up your playbook tremendously. I just find it to be incredible. And I hope we see it. I think it'd be something that would be interesting, especially if they can utilize his skills. That's it for this week, guys. You guys tune in every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time here on the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You guys can get at us on our Twitter forums at SinCity_ISR, at Cale_Henderson, where we talk all things Vegas sports. Until next time, until next week. Love, peace, and hair grease, folks.